Welcome to Talking Bengals, a Bengals site made by the fans for the fans. Check out Talking Bengals on iTunes, Google Play, Buzzsprout, and follow Talking Bengals on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. Now, let's join the conversation. Welcome to Talking Bengals. I'm Casey, joined by Nick. Nick, how are you doing this week?
Hey, I'm doing all right. How about you, Case?
Well, I can't complain too much. It's been a great start to the week. Got to fly this afternoon, so that's always a fun day. So we're going to jump right into it and get down to what's going to go on there in this week's show. So it's been a little bit of a meek week for stuff to report on. Mini camp, we can keep diving into that, which every other podcast has been doing. And really, how much can you tell from shorts and helmets and, no contact, not a whole lot of full effort. So we're going to go a little bit different with this week's episode. So one of the things we want to talk about is, role models. Looking at today's society, there's just a lot of empty spaces and, shells of people that our children can look up to. And especially when it comes to sports, in all honesty, I mean, you got all these people out there for themselves, the Richard Sherman type people, the good old people like that, the entire Pittsburgh Steelers organization. So those are the guys we want to mention or talk about. We want to think about a Bengals player stands out, is classy, and it's not like he's a C-list guy. He is one of the elite in the NFL, and that's A.J. Green. Nick, what do you think about A.J.?
I absolutely love him, man. I mean, the more and more I read Bengals news, the more and more A.J. Green, the more and more you got to love the guy. I mean, he comes from South Carolina, grew up in an area where, his family, they didn't have two nickels to rub together. And, I mean, they just didn't have anything. All of a sudden, he becomes one of the best wideouts in high school, and he gets invited to Nike camp. And, he really sees a benefit there of going to those Nike camps, going to the prospect camps, getting somebody to just look at him and say, hey, look, I'm pretty good at football. I'd like to come play for somebody. I mean, he's doing a camp now where he's going to have Tyler Eifert there here in I think it's Friday or Saturday, where, he's having these kids, they're underprivileged kids, and he's got them there on a scholarship for the camp. I mean, I think it's absolutely awesome. I mean, you got kids coming from areas of Cincinnati that, I mean, a lot of those families don't have, pennies to rub together. They don't even have anything to rub together. I mean, just seeing him come up to the plate and hit a home run pretty much every offseason, in every game. I mean, even when he's not playing, he is doing something good, not only just for the team, but for Cincinnati. I mean, just the type of person and player he is. I mean, I want my boy to grow up looking at players like him and saying, that's who I want to be like when I grow up. If I get to play sports when I get older and I get paid to be out there on the field, I want to be the type of guy that A.J. Green is. And, I mean, if my boy can be like that when he grows up, that is absolutely amazing.
I mean, I agree with you. I think you really, talked all about the good things it does in the communities. Another aspect of just, the superstar and role model that he is and, just class act all the way around. If you look at the commercials he's been in, it's not the flashy. And yes, if you're a Seahawks fan that's for some reason listening to this, I don't like Richard Sherman. I think he's a piece of garbage because of his attitude, the way he presents himself, the way he complains, the way he thinks people care about his opinion. But I mean, look at the commercials that Richard Sherman does, oh, goodness, I'm better than this. I have to eat beef jerky. And then have the other person I really dislike, Stephen A. Smith, inside his stomach. Those two go so well together because they're both obnoxious and ridiculous. So, yeah, Steve Sherman and Richard Sherman and I just mentioned his name. I can't remember it. Man, they make me fired up.
Stephen A. Smith.
Stephen A. Smith. There we go. Goodness, I'm getting that sometimers or old timers, whatever you want to call it, going on. But, yeah, those two are just a terrible combination. And, it just doesn't – that's not the kind of people you want to look up to. But I'll get off that soapbox and go back to A.J. Green. He's done NFL, network commercials. He's done, NFL shop commercials. He's done a Bose headphones commercials, but they're all presented classy. And that is in national chains that are going out there and showing him all over the country, which doesn't happen for Bengals players. I mean, I remember Ocho Cinco, Chad Johnson had a few commercials, but they really weren't that good. They weren't that big of advertising. And like I said, AJ Green's just classy about it. His couple commercials about, you got to earn this jersey were hilarious and classy. And it just goes right with his personality. He's the kind of person you want your kids to emulate. He's the kind of success story that, you cheer for, you root for. And he didn't just let all the money go to his head. He's still a class act. He does what needs to be done. And he brings success not only to himself, his teammates, his team, but also the city of Cincinnati. And for that, AJ Green, you are a great role model. You know what? And I think he's going to be a great mentor for this new crop of receivers they got. I mean, Ryan LaFell is the oldest guy there, but AJ Green is definitely, the leader of that receiver corps. He's one of the main leaders on this team. And you got some young guys, Josh Malone, John Ross. They could really learn a lot from him. So, yeah, hats off to AJ Green. Nick, what do you think about his role as a mentor?
I definitely think that his role as a mentor, I mean, it's already cemented there. I mean, he's the type of guy that goes out on the field and he plays hard, he practices hard, and you don't hear about off-field antics or him showing up late to practices. I mean, I'm sure everybody has shown up late to something once in their life, but you just don't hear about AJ Green doing stupid things. I mean, he obviously uses his head. He's professional. And not only that, I mean, he's someone who can now speak from experience, how to come back from an injury or how to come in and stay at that top-notch level from what you were drafted on. I mean, he was drafted as one of the top receivers, and he came out and he performed as a top receiver. I mean, he can speak on that. He can speak on a lot of things, especially when you're talking about a guy like John Ross, or maybe even switch it up to Joe Mixon, and maybe he can be a good role model for Joe Mixon. I mean, honestly, you get AJ Green mixing him in and showing him the ropes about how to be a professional and really show him what it means to be in the NFL and what it means to be a role model for these young kids.
Well, he is not kind of, talking about, John Ross, it moves us right into, what's our biggest concerns with the Bengals first-round pick? We know what he could do in college. We know how well he ran at the combine, but he has some history, and that's some injury history. And he may be available for full practice in August. He may be a little bit earlier, maybe a little bit later. But what are our concerns and what impact is he going to have this year, Nick?
I mean, my concern is him staying healthy. Just to be completely honest, I mean, he's got to stay healthy to be an impact on the field. If he's not healthy, he's not going to be that major impact player that we need him to be. I mean, when he's healthy, he would be a very, very amazing complement to AJ Green. I think that he could be a standout player in and of it by himself. But John Ross needs to stay healthy. He's going to be nursing his shoulder. He's obviously going to be a little bit more tentative around the shoulder. He's already had ankle injuries. So, I mean, you're looking at somebody who's, he's already seen injury and he's already came back from injuries. So, I mean, he's going to know whether or not he's ready to play or not. So, I mean, I think that as long as the organization doesn't push him to get out on the field to perform and he can come out and play when he's ready and he's 100%, I think that he's going to be a good complement to AJ Green. But hopefully he doesn't rush it and he actually comes out when he really is actually 100%.
I mean, the more I looked into it, the more I thought about it, and the more, I tried to take a step back from, listening to the mainstream media, the ESPNs and NFL networks and all their experts, especially around draft time. They're saying, he has some injury problems and, he's a great talent, but kind of a liability given the fact that, he has a lot of injuries. He's been plagued by injuries. His toughness is a question. But if you look at it, he got his shoulder injured in the 5th game of the season when they played Stanford, and then he continued to play out the rest of the season. So, I mean, toughness being an issue, I'm not sure if I go that far. To play with a labrum injury is a pretty big deal, and that makes you a pretty tough person to be able to make it through, and it shows that he's a team player. He didn't want to just give up on his team and say, well, I'm really fast. I'm probably going to still end up getting drafted. Now, he wouldn't probably been drafted nearly as high if he would have, taken more time off, not shown as big of a resume that he had in college. But, that 40-yard record was a big deal. But, I mean, he definitely stuck it out for his teammates. He wanted to, show out there for his teammates and say, I'm here for this team. And, to play through those kind of injuries shows toughness. But I am concerned, first-round draft pick, top 10 pick, that needs some, you got to get some you got to get your money's worth really fast. So you can't just sit there and wait on him and say, well, 2 to 3 years from now, he could be an impact player. No. You come in the top 10 picks, you need to make an impact immediately. You need to make your presence felt immediately. And the Bengals, I mean, I honestly believe the more I've seen on Mixon, the more I think about it, they have 2 top 10 draft picks that they got. So there's no excuse why they can't have 2 major impact players on the field. Like I said, if Ross is healthy, feels like he can go, he should go. I really hope that, the Marvin Lewis mantra just doesn't get stuck with everything here. And he doesn't just, well, we don't let rookies just start right off the bat. So we're going to get these guys on the bench and we're going to put Brandon LaFell out there on every snap for the first 2 or 3 games. And we're going to put Jeremy Hill out there for the first 3 or 4 series every single game. And that's what I hope is not the deciding factor, and I hope that's not holding them back. What do you think about Marvin Lewis holding them back?
I mean, obviously it's Marvin Lewis. He has a track record of doing it, but I really don't have too much to say about it, to be quite honest, dude. I mean, because if John Ross can come out and show him practice and, showing that he can run the routes and he can catch the ball and get open, I think he should be playing. Same thing with Joe Mixon. I think if Joe Mixon can show that he can make the cuts, he can follow the blocks, and he can take some pounding on the field, I think he should be the one starting. I don't think that Marvin Lewis should hold him back. But I think another good topic about John Ross to talk about is him graduating college, showing commitment, and following something through. I mean, I think that's a huge thing to talk about. What do you think?
I mean, I agree. It's always good for an athlete to just not be all about the dollars, not be all about, I'm a great player, I don't need to worry about college. No one needs an education. I mean, the average pro career is very short. So the fact that, he thought thinking about the future, showing commitment, having drive and desire to accomplish something other than things that occur on the field is just awesome. So hats off to him for making sure he finished what he needed to do.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, man, I'm absolutely floored that he graduated and he stuck with it. I think it's absolutely amazing, 100% absolutely amazing that he continued out with the education even though he got drafted so high. And, I mean, honestly, he could probably retire off of what his draft bonus and everything else was. I mean, just quite simply put, I think showing his commitment to, complete that education, I think that shows that he's all around ready to go. I think he's ready to go mentally. I think he's ready to go physically. When he feels he's 100%, I feel as though he'll be ready to go. And I mean, showing that commitment and showing that he does have the brains as well, I think it's amazing. All around, the more I'm just liking John Ross more and more.
I mean, yeah, so on the flip side there, all the Bengals players are getting in there, showing that they're for the team, signing their contracts, participating in team activities. And there's a Bengals rival that we all despise, known as the Pittsburgh Scumbags, who their main star running back, Le'Veon Bell, is still holding out and probably won't show up to any kind of mini camps or training camp. He just doesn't feel like he needs to participate, and he's not getting fined because he's not signing a contract. So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, we already know what I feel about Pittsburgh because I can't say the name I would like to say and stay decently professional. I mean, Le'Veon Bell, he's a good running back, but he's not that good. I mean, come on, get your head out of your backside. Put your stuff together and just sign the deal and come to practice, go to the mini camps, go to the camps, and just do your job. I mean, Nobody else in any of the professional realm could get away with doing something like this. I mean, and honestly, if it were any other team, I think that, they would just say, well, you don't want to sign the deal. You don't want to come to camps. You don't want to come to practice. You don't show up to team events. Well, we're just going to let you go. I mean, a team like New England would probably just let him go. And that's where you got to say, that's the reason why they win so much. So, I mean, but Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh, and yeah, Pittsburgh. There's a reason why a lot of people don't like Pittsburgh.
Well, yeah, let's get off of that horrible team and horrible organization and move on back to our great organization. And this is the 50th season. And for those of you who have not been listening every week, we're in a new series right now that we're covering the 50th season reflections. We're not going into the superstars. We're not going into the guys that, everybody will remember for, being just that great, awesome player. What we're looking for is Bengals players, blue-collar guys who worked hard, maybe didn't get all the recognition that they truly deserved, but were really the cornerstone of what the team is and what the city is. They're just that hard worker who goes out there day in, day out, doesn't complain, doesn't badmouth the team, doesn't end up with a whole lot of issues, and is just a solid performer who does great things on the field. And this week we're going to talk about, a guy who was with the Bengals for a very long time, and that's Rich Brem.
I mean, Rich Brem, absolutely 100% the best center/guard that we've ever had. I mean, he really set a standard. I mean, just the guy that you would want to block for you in the interior line. I mean, he really set that standard. I mean, everybody's being compared to him now. I mean, every center that we have now and that we ever will is going to be considered to, they're going to be compared and contrasted to Brem. So, I mean, it's like, how much can you really say about how good he was? I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals even did a tribute to Brem. I mean, how often does Cincinnati really do that for anybody, let alone an offensive lineman that wasn't Anthony Munoz? I mean, he was one of the offensive linemen for Corey Dillon, and one of the main reasons why Corey Dillon even ran for so much. I mean, and then he was part of the team that Carson Palmer only got sacked 19 times in 2005 for the entire season. I mean, that's almost unheard of. I mean, the guy was a staple for the line. I mean, he was somebody that you knew day in and day out was going to go out there, perform, and do his best job that he could do. And it's very unfortunate the way he went out with his ankle broken in the second game of the season against, of all teams, the Browns. But, I mean, I think he did make a good decision on retiring at that point, because coming back after all the injuries that he has had, I don't think would have been good after, I think it was 15 total seasons he played. So, I mean, 13 total seasons with the Bengals. Hats off to you, Brem. Hats off.
I mean, just a great competitor, and he comes from a very, like another tough guy story, talking about A.J. Green earlier. He was a walk-on at the University of West Virginia, and initially he thought he was going to be a tight end. He was only 225 pounds when he showed up to the Mountaineers at that point. And then they're like, nope, you're not going to be able to play as a tight end. We need you as a tackle. So he actually put on 100 pounds in order to make that happen. And that's a lot of weight. I just couldn't believe that, 100 pounds in order to be a highly successful tackle. And nobody knew if it was going to pan out, but it did. He got drafted by at that time, the Phoenix Cardinals, and it just didn't seem like things were going well for him. He ended up on waivers about midway through the season, and the Bengals ended up claiming him off waivers, going through the process at the time, and player for player type deal, one waiver to another, and they ended up with Rich Brem, who initially did not have a whole lot of impact. He kind of started off slow, But the more he got into the system, the better he got. And I mean, you talk about the poor guy and just some of the teams that he played on, just complete garbage. I mean, the entire early 2000s, late 90s, just, oh, those were some miserable times. But he was a standout guy. He always played hard. He always did what he needed to do. Like I said, he was a big part of the Corey Dillon success. And I mean, at that point, it was Corey Dillon and nothing else. So if that line was horrible and Corey Dillon didn't have a chance to do what he was able to, then that had been even more miserable years. I mean, shoot, the one year was 2002 maybe where Dillon set the single game rushing record of 278 yards, which was the record at the time. I mean, that was just an awesome game. And like I said, without an offensive line that, could block for him, make those kind of things happen, it just, those are memories that I would have missed out on growing up as a Bengals fan. So, I mean, Rich Fran was just a classy guy, does great things on the field for the Bengals. And like you said, they did. They had a big, ceremony for him during his retirement. I actually still have, the little poster they were giving away at the game. And just a great guy and someone who I always feel bad that he didn't get to play on more good teams. He only got that one playoff appearance that we all know how that ended. Just miserable to even have to talk about it. But he's just somebody that, I hope he doesn't get forgotten about in Cincinnati because he did great things in Cincinnati. And I know the sports writers and big fans won't forget him. And like I said, he is the measure by what all Bengals offensive centers are going to be measured by for a long time. I mean, if you're not up to Rich Fran standards, then people are going to be wondering why you're even here. What are you even doing? But, just a great guy. And we wish him well. And that's why he is our 50th season salute of this week. So moving on into roasted or boasted, Nick, I'm going to let you lead off with your topic.
Kevin Huber. Oh, gosh. Kevin Huber. Gotta love the guy. But my question is roasted or boasted, Casey? Kevin Huber is the best punter in Bengals history. All of Bengals history.
I'm going to boast it. I'll put it out there right now. I'm 100% going to boast it. I was racking my brains about this and trying to figure out, okay, who can I even remember as a punter? We've been around a while as Bengals fans, and I was trying to think, okay, out of all the Bengals punters over the years, there's only really a few that I can remember. We had a few stopgap years, but you had the Kyle Larson, Lee Johnson, who was a good punter for the most part, but started falling off. He's the only one I could think of that would even compare. But Huber has just been consistent, shown toughness, come back from injury, still able to do his job. And he just kicks the ball further. I mean, there's nobody else to compare it to that I remember in Bengals history. He can just pin people back with, 45, 55-plus yard kicks. And he just keeps people pinned deep, and he can be very successful. And, I mean, most Bengals punters, I can't even remember him being very good. I mean, Larson, I remember watching him punt at one point, and he had an average for over 5 games of 37 yards per punt, which is absolutely pathetic. So, no, I mean, there's not even a discussion on that. Of course, Kevin Huber is the best punter in Bengals history.
Well, of course, I'm going to boast it. I mean, Kevin Huber is most definitely, without a doubt, the best punter the Bengals have ever had. I mean, if anybody can come up with another punter, I mean, in Bengals history, maybe even other teams' histories, that could really change just the field dynamics of how far he could punt it and where he actually kicks it to. I mean, he's a directional punter that can punt the ball deep. I mean, he's somebody that changes the entire dynamics of the game when he gets out there and punts. And quite honestly, he's probably had more practice in the game than most other kickers or punters and, on most other teams because he's a Bengal. But, I mean, yeah, most definitely Kevin Huber, best punter in Bengals history. I would say that Kevin Huber may even get recognized for an all-time list. I mean, quite possibly one of the best punters that I know of and that I can remember. I mean, there's a few Colquitts that came out of Tennessee that, that were pretty good. But, I mean, Kevin Huber, by far, somebody who's been able to change field position time and time again for the better, especially for the Bengals, and definitely a good boast.
So, thinking about a couple other questions here, my big one that I thought about this week, you keep hearing like, the Bengals are going to do this, Steelers are going to do that, Ravens are going to be this successful. Well, let's look at a different aspect, and let's look at who's going to be the worst in the NFL this year. I hope this doesn't jinx the Bengals in any way. But roasted or boasted, the Browns will be the worst team in football this year.
I'm going to boast it. The Browns will be the worst team in the NFL almost every year. I just don't ever see the Browns being good. Their ownership doesn't care enough. I mean, we'll sit here and rag on the Bengals all day long, but in all aspects of everything, I mean, the Browns, they have the worst ownership in the NFL, period. I mean, not only did the Browns really make their fans mad when they moved to Baltimore, then they started another team. So not only did you move all of your fans to Baltimore, but now you start your own team, another team, and split those fans up again. Oh man, there's so many bad feelings against the Browns from a lot of Northern Ohioans that really just hate that ownership. But yeah, Browns will definitely be the worst team in the league by far. I just don't see another way.
And yeah, if it's Brown, flush it down. I'm not sure. I mean, I had a guy that worked for me at one point who was a huge Browns fan, and I just always felt bad for him because he wins one game and it's like the Super Bowl, and I've been there. As Bengals fans, we have been there where you win that one game every 5 or 6. You're like, yay, it's gonna be a good week. And I really hope the Bengals never go back to that. I mean, I want to continue to talk about playoff possibilities, continue to talk about Super Bowl possibilities. But for those fans in Cleveland right now, I don't think there's any hope. I mean, they didn't do a whole lot this offseason to address their big issues. I mean, Brock Osweiler, you brought him in, and he's still your third-string quarterback right now, and there's not even worth mentioning their other two quarterbacks ahead of him because they're not any good either. So I just don't see them making any steps that are going to help them be successful. And I mean, no offense to Hugh. I liked Hugh Jackson. He was the Bengals offensive coordinator. He grew on me. I didn't like him initially, but he started doing good things for us. But, I mean, that's like a coaching career suicide right there to go to the Browns. That's just not a good choice. I mean, if the Browns are the only team offering you a head coaching job, don't become a head coach at that point. Hold out for anybody else. Absolutely anybody would be a better fit than the Browns. But you know what? I just don't think they're going to do that good. Maybe they'll win the draft lottery this year, and get that next Andrew Luck style quarterback, if you want to call him that. That's what all the head guys always say is like, we're looking for the next Andrew Luck style quarterback. So maybe they'll get him in the draft. Hopefully not, because that means we'll get to see that guy twice a year. But even if they did, with the Browns' luck, I just don't know how well that would work for them. But that's just going to about wrap it up for us this week. So, Nick, what are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts is that John Ross needs to get healthy. When he gets healthy, we're going to see a big change in the dynamics of the game, especially offensively with A.J. Green. You're going to have somebody to actually offset A.J. Green and take away a lot of the double coverage. You could probably line them up even on the same side of the ball, same side of the field, and, split up the defenders. You have a deep threat with both of them, and you can't double team both of them because then everybody else is wide open. So, when you have both of those guys in the game, it's going to be difficult to cover our offense. So we need to get John Ross healthy, and hopefully he's 100% soon.
Yeah, my final thoughts this week's not a whole lot, but I'm ready for football season. That is the biggest thing I can say is, I'm tired of this off season. It's been brutal at times. It's been a lot of, ups and downs, but it's time for football season. I don't think I can remember a season I've been more excited for in a long time. And that was even when they're a perennial playoff team. I was like, I don't know if they really got all the tools they need to make it happen. I don't know if they've made the right moves. I don't know. But this year I'm still feeling confident. With every week, my confidence is just growing. These guys are showing they want to be on the team. They have a different look in the linebacker core. They have a different look on the defensive line. They have a different look in parts of the secondary. And that's a big deal. And they have all these weapons they've added on offense. And yes, their line is still very suspect and concerning, but they've added weapons. They're adding depth. they may just, have done just enough this year to make themselves that successful team. So, so my final thoughts this week is let's get to football season so we can see how well this is going to play out. Well, thank you for joining us this week. Check us out on iTunes, Google Play, Buzzsprout. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at Talking Bengals. Have a wonderful week. Hoo-day.
Hoo-day.